Hello there. So, genres. Why do we need genres? To put it simply, to find similar media to what you already like, and for creators to easily market their content to the right people. See, you like Ori, Will of the Wisps, and you want more games like it. Well, what do you like most about it? The platforming? The action? The Metroidvania aspect? You can look in those respective genres to find more games to fill that hole. However, today is a very weird time for genres in some mediums. Oh, I want to specifically talk about video games and music. I will be talking about video games first. In video games, genres have started to really divide themselves into smaller and smaller groups. With the rise of 3D technology, platformers split into 2D and 3D, and 2D has begun to split into Mario-inspired games and Wario-inspired games. RPGs used to just be tabletop games, but have split into action RPGs, MMORPGs, tactical RPGs, you get the point. With the increased accessibility to game development, and due to how time-consuming they often are for the developers and, to an extent, the players themselves, compared to other mediums, being innovative or willing to cater to smaller and smaller groups has become a mere necessity if you are not a big developer. As a result, many games can have dozens of genres listed under itself. Let me try to describe Overworld, for example. Survival, 2D platformer, open world. Survival horror, and most importantly, simulation. But, just because you are a fan of one or two of the genres will not mean you will like the game. You can rarely ever expect what a game has to offer just from the genres it's supposedly associated with. For example, you make a roguelite and colony sim fusion game, and you now need to market it as such. Problem is, that doesn't exactly communicate what the core of the game is. If it wasn't already obvious, let's take Cult of the Lamb for example. I tried it in early June in the Steam Next Fest. I looked at all the store page had to offer, and it seemed like it was a very combat-heavy roguelite game with elements of colony sim. So, I downloaded the demo. And I was a little disappointed. The game looked fine, but the combat felt very shallow and barebones. And the demo spent barely any time in the colony aspect, so that was just completely left out. However, recently I gave the title another chance, when my cousin gifted me the game. And I warmed up to it. Not for the combat god, no. It was for the colony sim aspect of the game, which was only really vaguely hinted at. The fun of the game was managing so many things at once, and despite the fact that I have one too many nitpicks with this game to recommend it to most people, I would say I still enjoyed it. And, well, it's a shame that this is what it took for me to even give it a second chance. If the combat roguelite aspect wasn't built up so much, maybe I would have come in with a different expectation. If they had opted with a different type of demo, maybe that could have hooked me and some other players for a more accurate representation of the whole game. So, the expectations set by what genres a game is associated with can be detrimental. By mixing two foreign genres together, you can create truly unique experiences. However, at the cost of possibly alienating both player bases, if you don't identify and clearly communicate what the core of the game is. Okay, I am done with this section. Now, let's just take a turn and talk about... You know, one thing that I never got is defining your music taste by genres. Look, until now I still don't know what the hell I like on a sonic or stylistic level. I am open to a lot of things in that department. This is likely because I listened to a lot of video game music growing up, which takes a lot from so many other genres by itself. And it does not really help that the other music I listen to are also big in their musical styles. Vocaloid, Utoloid, and whatever else similar. For example, because outside of its use of vocal synthesizers, it has many different influences in every other part of the music. You have electronic, rock, J-pop, funky folk music, and whatever insane shit Kitsune is doing. I guess what I am trying to say is that categorizing a genre by only one link between all the songs can be a bit of a headache, but it's not just that. Music, in general, is starting to go through the same process as games like I mentioned earlier. With many popular songs now placing an emphasis in novel sounds, gimmicks, and nostalgia, combined with the influx of accessibility to so much more music and music production tools than before, so many more artists and listeners pick and choose much more specifically. Thus is born the now new sort of genre-less side of music. Genre-less listeners and genre-less artists basically. Yes, there are many songs still very easily defined. But now I would say that, as we go forward, there will only be more music that is about as hard to categorize as some games are now. But, if that's not enough, surprise surprise, new genres, as in ones that are born anywhere within 50 years ago, are very susceptible to change. And very wildly too. The three most notable cases I can name are dubstep, funk, and breakcore. For a long time in the lifespans of these genres, there were, or is currently, discussions and debates surrounding what counts as the genre and what does not. Mostly due to subgenres picking up steam and replacing the old definition, causing the public's perception of the genre to shift. Let's take a look at one of these cases, breakcore. Breakcore is currently in a confusing state. The only real link between all the definitions are the complex breakbeats. It originated mostly from jungle, drum and bass, and hardcore. At the start it mostly features splicing and reshaping the amen break and other jungle breaks at high BPMs. Many producers also distort or apply effects to it to make it hit harder and fit the hardcore side of the genre. Phoenician snares and Igor then later introduced some uses of classical music as sampled backgrounds for breakcore songs. And then there's the rise of reggaecore, which, as the name suggests, is a more reggae-inspired subgenre. It involved a lot of sampling reggae vocals and using reggae and dancehall rhythms. And from here, another shift happens, introducing Renard, one of the many pseudonyms of MI6, or Lad Fox, or Hally Labs, or goddamn there are too many aliases to even list in this video. Either way, while Renard made a lot of what would usually be considered breakcore and reggaecore, Renard was more notable for popularizing the subgenre mashcore, which is closer to happy hardcore with heavy use of sampling and more melodic elements. This is the first big shift in breakcore's perception, as many people would follow in Renard's footsteps making breakcore which more closely follow his style. And then, there's the precursor to the next breakcore shift, lollycore. I am not gonna get into the rabbit hole of this genre. Just know that it originated from 4chan, as a parody of 2000's weeaboo culture. It of course took a lot of anime samples. And since this originated as a parody genre, it also just took together a lot of really edgy memes and in-jokes from internet culture of that era. And this genre didn't even have much of a breakcore influence. It just took anime samples and put some breakbeats over it, with barely even any manipulation apart from speeding things up. It was made specifically to sound unlistenable. But, as the world would have it, some people still listened to it. Shit then began the second wave of lollycore with My Love Feels All Wrong, which, this time around, actually has breakcore influences, alongside some J-core influences, which is essentially the Japanese scene of hardcore techno. The second wave was much brighter and more palatable to the normal person, and it became the second big shift in breakcore. And now, we get to modern day. Slut. Oh boy, Slut. Slut's works has a very close tie from the more recent lollycore, with more of a dark ambient twist to it. Notably, there's also a lot of very dark samples and elements in general which have landed Slut in some hot water a couple of times. This new subgenre has very recently been labeled Dream Break, after the album of the same name by Duskfall. And I am gonna stop here, because I am frankly having a headache. The public perception of breakcore has shifted from very drum-centric hardcore which samples pre-existing breaks and constantly transforms it into a mash of samples with melodic hardcore elements, to Japanese hardcore techno with anime samples, into a more dark atmospheric drum and bass with hints of nostalgia and internet culture. Okay, so has the point gotten across? Did this video need to become a history lesson in breakcore? No to both? Fuck it, I am rolling with this shit anyways. So, what defines a genre? And what does a genre really imply nowadays? With the current trends in the space of video games and music, genres, in my opinion, are becoming more and more vague. Just like language, a genre, especially a new one, is defined by the people who claim to engage with them. Thus, expectations around these genres may change over time, even if it does not line up with what is technically quote-unquote right. In the human pursuit of putting a label to everything similar and finding more and more specific traits in a piece of art, combined with the age of the internet, smaller classes of genres such as subgenres and micro-genres now arise and multiply in greater numbers than before. And in some cases, they may even outshine their parents, or, in other cases, an entirely different genre. But, I am saying this like we need to have a perfect definition for everything. I don't mean it that way. Our works evolve when we transcend expectations and make something truly unique. Something that has its own vision and sticks to it. And the fact that many modern works are only becoming harder and harder to pin down is a good sign, really. At least, when it's done right. It's still easy to forget, though, that just because something's not totally original, doesn't mean nobody will like it. Just because you're not always on some new frontier doesn't mean that you can't contribute anything to the community at large. So, today, in the age of better creative freedom than ever, choose what you want to make. Take what you will from the conventions of genres, but don't be afraid to twist and take from others, if it brings you closer to that vision. Thanks for watching.